big, big, big announcement running for president over the weekend. So let's show you Tulsi Gabbard's big announcement here.
Are you gonna run for president of the United States and do something about it? Do you think she should? Do you think she should? Are you gonna run?
I have decided to run and will be making a formal announcement within the next week.
Whoa.
So she was on with CNN's Van Jones last night saying she has decided to run and will be making a formal announcement this week. There's a lot to love about Tulsi Gabbard, and then there's things to be concerned about. So I'm going to give you the good, the bad, and as much as I can. So Tulsi Gabbard, she's been a member of Congress representing Hawaii, I think since 2012. And she has really come on the national scene over the last 2-3 years. She was the Democratic National Committee's vice chairwoman, and obviously, infamously, she quit because they were essentially rigging the primary against Bernie Sanders, and then became one of Bernie Sanders' top campaign supporters. She's definitely not known as nationally as Bernie Sanders, but she is known as one of the leading progressives in Congress. She's also the first, I believe, the first Indian American that was elected to Congress. She's of Indian heritage from Hawaii, and she definitely has a lot of progressive bona fides. She's for Medicare for all. She was one of the first people to sign on to Medicare for all after Bernie Sanders pushed it. She's for free public college. She's for ending private prisons. She's for a Green New Deal and that taking aggressive stances against climate change. She's also, to me, very, very. Oh, excuse me. Tulsi isn't Indian, Jordan. She's American Samoan. Okay. Well, most of what I've read has referred to her as an Indian American, but thank you for correcting me. So she also, to me, has been more aggressive as far as ending America's never-ending military engagements and military adventurism all over the world. She's been more progressive and more to the left, I would say, of Bernie Sanders. So there's a lot to like. Let me show you one clip where Tulsi Gabbard pushed forward and ending, basically a bill that set the Stop Arming Terrorists bill. So this gives you a little bit of a taste of where she's coming from as far as being, to me, currently, as far as those who are running, the most progressive and the most left as far as the never-ending military-industrial complex. Here's Tulsi.
The American people have felt directly the cost of our nation's interventionist wars, a cost borne by our nation's sons and daughters who've served, and by communities and people in every part of this country. We've spent trillions of dollars on regime change wars in the Middle East, while communities like mine in Hawaii face a severe lack of affordable housing, aging infrastructure, the need to invest in education, healthcare, and so much more. Our limited resources should go toward rebuilding our communities here at home, not fueling more counterproductive regime change wars abroad. I've introduced the Stop Arming Terrorists Act, legislation that would stop our government from using taxpayer dollars to directly or indirectly support groups who are allied with and supporting terrorist groups like ISIS and al-Qaeda in their war to overthrow the Syrian government. The fact that our resources are being used to strengthen the very terrorist groups and stop this madness. I yield back.
So that's Tulsi Gabbard. She was trying to get the United States to stop helping and to stop arming Saudi Arabia in its, what do you call it? Other than genocide of Yemen. So these are very, very important policy positions that she's putting out there that, frankly, you're not going to hear on the Democratic debate stage other than Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard is way more progressive on foreign policy and ending these never-ending wars and the military-industrial complex than Elizabeth Warren is, per se. Here's another clip, courtesy of Max Blumenthal, who put out a lot of short clips of Tulsi Gabbard that show you her position on essentially never-ending war, which I think is really, really, really where we need to go, the direction we need to take as far as ending the military-industrial complex. Here we go. And, essentially pushing our spread democracy around the world, it's essentially for regime change to insert equally brutal dictators that are just more friendly to our foreign policy. Here we go.
And so your question about, why do we keep doing this?
Right.
I think there are a lot of different things that go into that and to drive that. You have the military-industrial complex that benefits and makes a lot of money off of our being in a perpetual state of war. You have a lot of other countries, like Saudi Arabia, for example, who dump a lot of money into the United States and kind of try to use our U.S. military as their force to go in and do certain things in the Middle East that's more beneficial to Saudi Arabia. We see this happening in Yemen right now. Yet another example. Interventionist war, jumping in there. We're supporting Saudi Arabia and their coalition in this war that's created the worst humanitarian disaster in the world. They just bombed a school bus and killed 40 kids a couple of weeks ago in Yemen. Yemeni civilians bombed weddings in Yemen. And yet our U.S. government is not saying, hey, we're going to stop and yank all of our support for Saudi Arabia. They're continuing to do it.
So there you go. That is her on essentially us continually parading around the world, trying to spread our holy democracy and essentially making the situation worse all around the world. So I love that kind of talk. And you are never, ever going to hear from corporate establishment Democrats. You ain't going to hear it from Kamala Harris. Certainly not going to hear it from Cory Booker, Kirsten Gillibrand, Joe Biden, Beto O'Rourke. You're not going to hear it from any of these people. You will hear it to a certain extent from Bernie Sanders. Why Tulsi Gabbard is going to be such a powerful person on that debate stage, a powerful person as far as getting more talk of ending the never-ending wars, on explaining why it is we have terrorism. She served three tours as a soldier in Iraq and Afghanistan. She has been there as I think she was a nurse, a medic. So she's not just, she's not Lindsey Graham, like one of these chicken hawks who sends men and women to go die without ever serving themselves. And, all of these neocons, both in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, she's been there. She is a war veteran. She has been on the front lines. So she knows what it is to go and fight and risk your life. And I think that's powerful to actually have a presidential candidate who's recently been there and could talk about the havoc that we are putting on soldiers' families, veteran suicide, somebody not like Trump who gave lip service to the veterans, an actual veteran. So I think this is super important. Now, I've given you the good. I've given you, I personally think, one of the best parts about Tulsi Gabbard, before I get to some of the things that are concerning, one of the best things about Tulsi Gabbard is Tulsi Gabbard, like Bernie Sanders being in the 2016 presidential campaign, his mere presence, his policy arguments, his ability to make the case has moved the needle so far as Medicare for all, as far as free public college, as far as all these things. I mean, when you look at the polls, when it comes to all of these things that Bernie championed, they were not at these numbers. You did not see these numbers before Bernie Sanders entered the presidential race in 2016. You got 70% want Medicare for all. Thank Bernie Sanders for that. 60% want free public college. Thank Bernie Sanders for moving the needle of that. 58% want the $15 minimum wage. Thank Bernie Sanders and, of course, the Fight for 15 for that. 72% want Social Security expanded. He was the only candidate talking about that in 2016. 57% want to break up the big banks. As far as I know, only candidate talking about that in 2016. Hillary Clinton, of course, had her public and private positions when it came to the big banks. 64% want to legalize marijuana. That wasn't a big thing as far as Bernie Sanders. And, of course, the jobs guarantee he has pushed at 65%. So what Bernie has done to a lot of these domestic issues, which, by the way, Tulsi Gabbard is in lockstep with the majority of those positions, I think Tulsi Gabbard could really, 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 for the first time, other than Ron Paul, maybe Rand Paul to a lesser extent, Tulsi Gabbard could really force the Democratic Party to have to a come to Jesus moment for the never-ending war that they are complicit in. Remember, the Democratic Party, Barack Obama, they didn't care about the Yemen genocide. They didn't care. Obama started arming Saudi Arabia and refueling Saudi Arabian jets. That was Barack Obama, a Democrat. All of a sudden, the Democrats care about the genocide in Yemen when a Washington Post columnist was executed and dismembered by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. They didn't care about Yemenis children dying. They didn't care about school buses being blown up by U.S.-made weapons that are being dropped from Saudi Arabian planes that the United States is refueling midair. They didn't care about that at all. 17 years in Afghanistan, now 18 years. When do you hear the Democratic Party talk about this? Why the hell are we still in Afghanistan? Who are we trying to help in Afghanistan at this point? 18 years? I mean, that's like your crazy uncle moving in with you, and he just won't leave. 18 years in Afghanistan. She's been against Syria and the United States doing regime change in Syria for, I believe, since 2013. And she's been knocked and knocked and knocked and knocked as, you know, an Assad apologist. This is another knock on her. An Assad apologist for daring to meet with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in Syria. I don't think it's a bad thing that she met with Bashar al-Assad. And by the way, the United States should have never gotten involved with Syria in the first place. If you want to pursue humanitarian aid to somewhere like Syria, which is having an internal civil war and hundreds of thousands of people have died, I don't have a problem with that. The problem is when the United States, using our troops and our money, goes in, wild-eyed and, half-cocked, and we take the lead all over the world. No, you bring together a coalition, and it shouldn't involve permanent United States troops in Syria. We cannot be the global policeman and woman. And by the way, the Syrian war is really over a pipeline, if you do the homework. It's really over a pipeline and oil and geopolitical efforts to control the oil supply in that part of the world. So the United States has troops out there, has spent God knows how much money in Syria, and Tulsi Gabbard has been on the right side of that. And I don't think it's a bad thing, frankly. Bashar al-Assad is a dictator. He has been behind the brutal deaths of many, many Syrian citizens. He's not a good guy. Don't get me wrong. But, the same people that are criticizing Tulsi Gabbard for meeting with President Bashar al-Assad to try and help find and forge a political solution to stop the murder and the war in Syria. The same people attacking her as a pro-Assad apologist, well, where are these people on the United States basically being a Mohammed bin Salman apologist? And not just, it's worse than meeting with Bashar al-Assad. The United States not only meets with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, we're arming Saudi Arabia with weapons, with missiles, with bombs, refueling their jets mid-air. For what? Because Saudi Arabia is good for the United States business interests. The United States there's no threat to the United States in Yemen. Frankly, there's no threat to the United States in Syria. This is all neocon, military-industrial complex nonsense. So, those are the pros of Tulsi Gabbard. I think there's a lot to like. I think that she, frankly, is more progressive than Bernie is. as far as ending the military-industrial complex. I think she is the most progressive on military issues. I have no problem at all, the fact that she met with President Bashar al-Assad. I think more of us should get involved on a political level, not a military level, but on a political level, trying to end this Syrian war.